Hey guys, so I'm working on a new surfboard here, and I figured why not take a little bit of time and talk about how to get a really good polish, a glossy finish on your surfboards. Now, I've gotten a few questions from some of you, which is what kind of prompted me to make this video. Now, I have covered polishing previously, but maybe it wasn't as clear, and I do have some better tips and tricks on how to get a really great showroom finish. To get your board to this point right here, I'm sanded to my gloss coat of epoxy or polyester resin, depending on what type of board you're building, what type of resin you're using. The gloss coat has been sanded to 1000 grit. Once you get to wet sanding the board after your gloss coat, you're going to end up with something that looks a bit like this. So it's going to be matte, but very smooth. Make sure you get a really nice smooth finish. And if you want to know how to make a surfboard, go check out my other videos, obviously. This video is just about the polishing stage. And at the 1000 grit, we're going to polish it with either a compound or a polish. Now the type that I really like to use, and I'll go over all the materials and tools you need, is this Norton Liquid Ice. I've used some of the other polishes. Nothing I found worked as well as this. Now this is used for automotive polish, and it's a 3-part system. But we'll come back to this. On the back here, you can kind of see I've already polished it, and it's pretty glossy. Now there's some dust on it and stuff. It's not too bad. It's starting to get a bit of a gloss to it. It's looking really good. We're going to hit it again. The deck of the board is sanded, 1000 grit as I mentioned, very matte. To make this pop, we're going to polish it with that polish. So let's just talk really quickly about the tools we're going to need. Obviously, a polisher like this. But you can also get away with using a random orbital sander with a bonnet like this. This is a wool bonnet, a wool pad like this. Once you get it sanded past this, you can always switch over to a foam pad and really kind of take it to like a super, super, super glossy finish. But this will get it to a point where you'll be able to see a remarkable difference and it'll look really good. Spray bottle of water. Also, my polisher is a Milwaukee, but DeWalt makes a good one too. And there's a few other brands out there. You can't use something cheap because it just doesn't have the power to really, the torque to do a great job, especially at the lower speeds. And what's really important is having the ability to control on a machine like this, the lower speeds, because if you just really hit it really fast with no variable speed, what can happen is you can kind of sometimes burn through the finish. It's unlikely, but it's a possibility. Pair of gloves, a mask, because you don't want to be breathing in too much of this stuff once it kind of gets airborne, once it dries off. Hearing protection if you want, and sometimes safety glasses. Probably not a bad idea, especially since you got a thing that's spitting so fast. I'm going to set this up and we're going to get polishing. Oh, and as I mentioned, here is a foam pad. What happens when you use this polish, ooh, that's dusty. When you use this polish this is a 3-part system. And I actually only have 2 of the parts. But if you really, really want to get like great, super high gloss finish, what you're going to do is this is your roughest grit right here, if you can imagine. The bonnet, this wool bonnet, has more cutting action than, say, this foam pad. This polish has some particles suspended in it. I think it's around 1200 grit. It also is facilitated, the cutting action is facilitated by these pads. We're going to start with the wool bonnet. It's going to take down the kind of matteness to this, but what this will do is it'll really kind of just clean it up and really make it pop. And the other thing I really like is I like using a garbage bag that I've cut some holes in it. You've probably seen it in some of my other videos if you follow me. I like this just to keep the spray and stuff down. It's just cheap, easy. You can kind of rinse it off and clean it and reuse it. What I really like about it is it's just easier than using like a pair of coveralls or a Tyvek suit. I'm going to lay out a little bit of the polish just on the board like this. I'm going to do it in sections at a time and work my way down. Give it a spritz of water just to help kind of smooth out, and because this stuff is fairly thick, it'll just help it work itself into the pad and all over the board. I like taking my wool pad now, and I like just kind of spreading it out. And what this does is it helps eliminate too much splatter initially, because if you start this power sander off, or power polisher off, what it will do, if there's big globs of it, it'll just fling it. Start it off at the slowest speed and just work the polish into the board, onto the surface of the board. And you don't ever want to be in one spot for too long, because that can create a hot spot. What this initial stage is doing is it's starting to cut into the surface of the epoxy or polyester resin, and it's removing the scratches from the 1000 grit. And I'm going to take my time and just do this and work it all the way around. Add a little water when needed, add a little polish if needed, if it gets a little too dry. We're going to do this for maybe about a minute or two. Something to note is epoxy resin is much harder to polish than polyester resin. It's not that it can't be polished, just it takes a bit more time because epoxy is a lot tougher, literally. So it takes more effort to get it to shine. You might not notice it, but as I'm doing this, as I'm working with the polisher, I'm technically not right super flat. What I'm doing is the rotation of this is clockwise. So my edge is more biased when I'm holding it towards this edge. This is being acute and showing you, but it's not going to be completely flat like this. I'm going to have just a little bit more pressure this way. And what that does is that's super important, especially as this gets shinier and shinier. This pad will get grippier and grippier. And what we're going to do is if I was more biased on this side, it will fling the board away from me. And you don't want that. That's bad, you know, because you're going to damage the board. But because I'm biased this way, if it does fling, it flings it into me. So that'll keep pressure onto me. I also have some grippy pads that I like using. And that just keeps the board kind of from moving too much. Now already it's starting to become shiny, smooth. The scratches are getting removed. It's already starting to pop a little bit. I'm going to let this dry out now, and this is the key. Letting this pad, you're working out all the water in the polish. You're letting it dry out, and then it'll start really buffing in the polish. And that's when it's going to really pop. And then I'll just do the rest of the board, come back, maybe I'll hit it with the foam pad, not sure, we'll see what it looks like. Oh, and at this point, I'm going to now increase the speed, but very, very important, keep it moving, because now there's no lubrication. So because it's not wet anymore, your chances of kind of creating a hot spot go up significantly. There, that's looking really good. Now, how I like to do the rails is I like to load my pad up with a little bit of polish. wet it down, smooth it out a little bit, and then I just kind of keep an angle. Same thing. I'm going to keep it biased clockwise on the right hand side to, if it throws the board, it'll throw it at me and not away. And the amount of pressure I'm putting is a very light touch. I'm letting the pad do all the work. See right there? The board caught and it flung it at me. Not hard, but if it was going the other direction, that wouldn't be good. So always keep it biased to the way it's spinning towards you. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to get this now, increase the speed, and then I'll just do the rest of the board. We'll come back and see what it looks like. Now this really popped. If I really wanted to, I could take it up even finer, but this is good enough, especially since, you know, it's going to get dinged, it's going to get dragged over the sand. It's not going to look like this ever again in its life. So, but for the sake of this video, just wanted to show you that you can polish epoxy to a really nice, super glossy finish. I'd say it's about 90%. You know, to go that extra 10% would take a little bit more polishing, a little more work. But for me, I don't really need to do that. But if you want to do that, you can totally do it. Just keep polishing it. Make sure when you sand, you take it up to 1,000 grit, maybe even 1,200 before you start polishing. This is a really good groveler type board. It should be a lot of fun. I even put a 3D printed handle in it because it's so wide. So it should go well. And also, this is a fabric inlay. And it laid super flat, super nice. And this is from actually Spoonflower, an online site that you can order fabric. And this is the, I think, linen cotton or cotton linen. I forget which one it is, but it's a super nice fabric that lays really well for inlays. And thanks to James who turned me on to Spoonflower. All right, let's get a couple final shots of this board. But yeah, it's looking sweet. And if the shape looks kind of familiar to some of you, I based this off of the Firewire sweet potato. A groveler type of board. Deep double concave in the back. I made it the same height as me, roughly, so I'm hoping it should go well. All right, that's how you polish a surfboard. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.